I sit right about here. No, still doesn't work. Still blue. Okay. Today is part 2 of the videos dedicated to deductionists at different skill levels. Probably should have filmed this one first since it's for beginners or returning deductionists. And then the other one was for intermediate, and the next one will be for advanced deductionists. But I had that one ready, so I thought I'd put it out. So this one is for beginning and returning deductionists. So what I mean by that is someone who is interested in deduction, someone who is starting deduction for the first time, or if you were in my own shoes a few months back, about a year ago actually, someone who is returning to deduction after they had taken some time off. Both of these are similar situations because if you've taken time away from deduction, your mind goes back to... It breaks down its connections that were used for deduction because it's hard to maintain that kind of thought process. So you have to kind of, in a sense, you have to relearn the deductive process again. Fortunately, if you are returning to deduction, it doesn't take you that long to learn everything again. Whereas if you're beginning deduction, it can take time to build up a system in your mind that works for deduction. So these are just some tips, some hints, some encouragements. I didn't mean to rhyme that. That will help deductionists who are wanting to start deduction or wanting to return to deduction after some period of time. This video is also dedicated to one of my students who is in the same situation as I was. She gave up on deduction for a short period of time and is coming back into deduction now. The first tip, probably the most important tip, is don't give up. Just because it's hard to make deductions at first, you don't see how it works at first, you may not feel that you're set up, you're wired to be a good deductionist, that doesn't matter. You can still become a deductionist. So don't give up on deduction. If you focus on it, you keep practicing at it, you will eventually become proficient with it. The second tip is to read. This one actually comes from Maria Konikova's book, or was it the Deduction Guide? I forget. The main reason being is that when you read, you can see cause and effect a lot clearer than you can in the physical world. And the way a lot of books are set up, they can help you to learn how reasoning works. Plus, the storyline progresses at a pace that you might be able to keep up with. It's a slower pace than a movie, for example, so you have more time to reason on things, to think things through, which might help you to become a better reasoner. Additionally, reading can come in handy just in general, passing by an item. If you read what's on the description, you're going to be better at paying attention to things. So read everything that you can get your hands on, become better at reading, and also reading will increase your cognitive function because it increases imagination. So all of these things, no matter how you look at it, reading can help you. Skills that you learn from reading help you in deduction, no matter what the skill is. Lateral thinking puzzles. So these are puzzles that require thinking in reverse or thinking about the story, the chain of events. These are things that will help you to think backwards, reason backwards, like deductionists have to do. In everyday life, you think of things from point A to point B, cause and effect, but it takes training to get your mind to think backwards, to see an item and to reason how it could have gotten there, what caused it to be there. Another one that I feel like mentioning, learn from deductionists, but don't imitate us, don't copy us. The reason I say this is because it can be tempting to do anything and everything you can to completely copy everything we say. It's easy. People work good when we give them direction. The mind likes direction. So if I tell you how to deduce handedness, for example, that's great. But now you're only going to be able to determine how to deduce handedness. And that's a good skill, of course, but at the same time, if I teach you to make your own bricks, you're going to be able to do that on your own. Whereas if I just give you the bricks, you're going to be limited to what you can do with them. And then another common question that I get asked is, are emotions bad to deduction? This is a complicated question for me to answer. Are emotions bad to deduction? The answer is no. But there has to be a balance here. So, for example, what I mean by this is I actually recently was enlightened on this subject a bit, where someone mentioned to me that he was good at making deductions when he was angry. And this makes sense to a degree because, and I thank Jordan at Art of Deduction for pointing this out, that anger gives him a motivation to solve deduction. It makes him interested. Being interested in deduction is what can cause you to finish your deductions, to flesh them out, to work them out, to solve the problem. If you're not interested in the deduction that you're trying to make, you're not going to want to solve it, and you're just going to lazy half-arse it. However, on the flip side of that coin, if you're too emotional and you want a certain outcome, that's going to cause you to bias yourself. I think this is the only time the Myers-Briggs personality test can come in handy when it comes to deductionists. Being an intelligent or an intuitive type versus being an emotional thinker doesn't mean you can't become a deductionist. However, I think this is where it comes in. I haven't tested this yet, but it is a theory of mine. I think the intuitive thinkers will be better at deductions without emotions because they don't need that motivation. Whereas the emotional thinkers will be better at emotionally driven deductions because of the motivation. Either way you cut it, though, if you are going to be an emotional deductionist, you have to remember to keep your deductions balanced, because you can't allow bias to get in the way. The next tip that I suggest is to slow down. A lot of people, they want to rush through deduction. They want to learn it as fast as possible. You can't do that. You have to learn everything piece by piece. So the first step to deduction is observation. Then there's deduction. Then there's conclusion. If you try and string all of these into one event, you're going to fail. You're not going to be able to make it. However, if you slow down during the observations and you observe everything you can at first, you're going to get all your data sets. You're going to be able to think about them. Then you're going to be able to make your deductions. You're going to take that as a second step. You're going to be slow about that one as well. And then you're going to move on to your third step, the conclusion. You're going to take your time with that. You're going to reason on that. And then, if it all makes sense, if your conclusion doesn't counteract any of your evidence, or your evidence doesn't counteract any of your conclusions, then you're done with your deduction. But you have to take that step by step. And that'll help you solidify the steps that you need. The next one is to build up confidence. This one can be a problem. A lot of people are scared to make deductions because they're scared they'll be wrong, or they'll approach someone with a deduction and the person will tell them no, they're wrong, or the person in question will insult them. it's important to have confidence, not overconfidence, because overconfidence will mean that you just will be in denial if you're ever wrong. But have confidence in your skills, have confidence in your ability. If you absolutely need to, what you can do is find someone who's willing to listen to your deductions and maybe not make the deduction at the moment, but take it back with you later on and talk to that person about the deduction you're making, reason with him about it, and come to your conclusion in private. You don't have to be nervous about what people are going to think about your deduction. And then once you build that confidence up, you can take deduction back out to the real world. Okay, so that is all of the tips I had for beginning deductionists or returning deductionists. These are things that I had to do to help me when I came back into it after those 2 years that I took away from it. And I'm sure that many of these points will help anyone who is either trying to become a deductionist or trying to return to deduction. So these ones will hopefully help you out. Anyway, that's it for today, and thank you for watching.